So when we meditate, the most important thing is that our spine be straight. So it doesn't really matter whether you're laying down or sitting up or standing up. All methods of meditation require sort of a nice posture and a straight spine. And a lot of us think that, posture is sort of about upbringing or like training ourselves to sit properly. But it turns out that posture is really about physics and center of gravity. So if we look at my posture right now, I'm sort of relaxed and sort of chilling, but at the same time, one knee is on top of the other, and my back is kind of like curved right now. And so if we think about, where my center of gravity is, it's actually somewhere kind of around here, which is why I'm sort of leaning back into it. If we look at how chairs are usually designed, usually chairs have a slope to them, with our knees sort of being up as we leave the chair, and we can kind of sink into the back of the chair. And we think that that's very comfortable because it allows us to slouch. But really, most chairs that we sit in are not really conducive from a center of gravity standpoint to having us sit up properly. So there's one very simple principle which allows us to sit up with a proper posture effortlessly. And that is that our hips have to be higher than our knees. So if we kind of look at the way that I'm sitting right now, I'm kind of slouching, I'm kind of like, I'm putting this knee up over here because this feels comfortable because of the way that my center of gravity is. But if I kind of even put this down, it's kind of like I'm sort of slouching, my butt is kind of slipping into the back of the chair. Even if I try sitting up in the chair, what I'll naturally do is slouch because basically my hips and my knees are sort of in a line with my hips being maybe a touch lower. And so this is going to naturally lead to a slouch. This is sort of what I normally feel like sitting like. Now, if I take something like a pillow and I actually put it right underneath my hips, but not underneath my knees, so I'm not putting the pillow all the way through, what happens to my posture? So as I elevate my hips, it's more natural to sit up straight. Because essentially what I've done is I've adjusted my center of gravity. I've boosted up my hips a little bit in relation to my knees, so it's more easy to sit up straight. I can even do something like fold the pillow in half and then sit on top of that, and then I sit up even higher. And so when I'm sitting like this, it's very, very easy to sit up straight. And so the key thing that we want to be looking for is to pay attention to the relationship between our hips and our knees. There's another way that you can kind of test this, and I encourage y'all to grab your own pillow and try sitting on it to just see what it feels like. Let your body do what it naturally wants to do, and then start to make adjustments. So the next thing that we're going to do is I'm going to actually sit forward in the chair. And already, so as I sit forward in the chair, what do you guys notice about what my knees naturally do? They start to slope down. As my knees go below my hips, I start to sit up straight. So you can kind of sit like this, and your hips will be above your knees, and your back will naturally straighten. But we could even take it a little bit further and put our feet out in front of us. So if you extend your feet out all the way in front of you with your legs straight, sitting at the edge of a chair, notice the sensations in your back. What you'll discover is that you sort of naturally want to sit up straight. It's not the most comfortable posture overall, but at least your back is naturally very straight. For some people, it may feel a little bit more comfortable to actually cross their ankles. And if you sit like this, just sort of notice how your center of gravity is. Listen to what your body is telling you about sort of whether this is comfortable or uncomfortable. And what is it that's comfortable or uncomfortable? Notice what you have to do with your muscles, if anything, to keep your back up straight. And the interesting thing is that when we look at meditation traditionally, most people are not really sitting in chairs. And so most meditation is actually conducted on the floor. So let's take a quick look at that. I'm going to start with sort of a cross-legged position. And when I sit down on the floor cross-legged, what do you guys notice about my hips and my knees? My hips are down here, my knees are up here. And so what do you feel like doing if you sit like this? You feel like slouching, because my center of gravity is somewhere over here. And now let's see what happens if I take this pillow and sit on it. Right? So as I reduce the angle between my knees and my hips, as my hips start to elevate, I start to feel like more naturally like I want to sit up. And now let's look at some of these postures that people use when they meditate, like Ardha Padmasana, which is the half lotus posture. And this is something that you shouldn't try at home if you're not prepared to, if you're not limber. So I'm going to just demonstrate this. So I'm going to take this leg and I'm going to put it up. Now we see why meditators sit like this, right? Because when I do this, these knees come down a little bit more, and now it's very easy for me to sit up straight for long periods of time. Because the yogis wanted to develop particular postures that did not require muscular effort for you to sit up straight. They wanted you to channel the weight of your body through this central pole of your spine and directly into the ground. And then if you really want to see, we can move on to full lotus. So in full lotus, once again, my knees are almost pushing into the ground, my feet are a little bit higher, and my hips are above my knees. So in full lotus, the reason that people meditate like this, there are a couple of other kind of things around energy and stuff like that. But basically, this posture is very good to keep our spine straight. I'm going to show you guys one or two other postures. One is Vajrasana, which is thunderbolt pose. So you guys may see me sitting like this because, once again, same basic principle, hips over here, knees over here. So it's really natural for me to sit this way, and it's sort of very easy for me to sit up straight for long periods of time. A lot of people who are especially runners may have scar tissue in their knees, so it can be very hard for you to sit in Vajrasana if you're not sort of flexible enough. And then the last posture that I'm going to show you guys is one where I actually sit on top of my ankles. And so this is sort of one of my favorite postures where I can kind of sit for a long, long time. And now that I'm sitting on top of my ankles, it's so comfortable to sit up straight like this because I'm actually elevating my pelvis and my hips are higher than my knees, so it becomes incredibly comfortable. So at the end of the day, anytime you meditate, we want to keep your spine as straight as possible. Oddly enough, it doesn't have to be upright. You can actually meditate laying down, and we may teach you one or two techniques that you should be laying down for. But what we're really shooting for is that your spine be straight. We also want you to be able to meditate in a posture where, your body isn't kind of crying out to you that it wants to move and it wants to shift. So your spine needs to be straight, and it needs to be comfortable being straight. And so the key to that and the key to maintaining your posture is actually all about physics and center of gravity. And as long as your hips are higher than your knees, your posture will be upright.